Chapter 27. Shadow over the Red Bluffs. The desert sun hung low, painting the sky red as a fresh-licked wound, and the wind come whispering across the sand like it was telling secrets only the cacti could hear. Jose Cigarito, a wiry feller with eyes sharp as a hawk's and a grin that could charm a rattlesnake, sat astride his Mustang looking out over the lonesome valley. He weren't no ordinary Apache warrior, no sir. Folks said he was half shadow, half storm, born under a sky crackling with lightning, and he carried that wild spark in his heart. Now Jose Cigarito was fixing to set out on a voyage, not across no ocean, mind you, but across the vast, cruel desert that stretched twixt the Mescalero lands and the far-off trading post at Santa Fe. Word had come that a band of Mexican traders was hauling a wagon full of rifles, powder, and shiny gewgaws, aiming to swap 'em with folks what didn't take kindly to Apache ways. The elders of Tebekani Band, those who smile beneath the stars, sitting solemn as stones in their blankets, had tasked Cigarito with a mighty chore. Get to that trading post, figure the traders' plans, and make sure them rifles didn't end up in the wrong hands. "Reckon you're the only one slick enough for this, Cigarito," old Gomez had said, chewing on his pipe. "But don't go getting cocky. The desert don't care for slagger." Cigarito just flashed that grin of his. "Ain't the desert I'm worried about, Nagoyani. It's them traders' trigger fingers." So off he went, alone save for his Mustang, a tough old beast named Chiishiyili, little wind that spins dust, and a tomahawk tucked snug in his belt. He wore no feathers, no beads, nothing to mark him as Mescalero. Just a plain poncho, earth-colored, so's he could blend into the sand like a ghost. His voyage was one of stealth, you see, for the Mescalero didn't take kindly to leaving tracks. The first day was hotter 'n a skillet, and the sun beat down like it had a grudge. Cigarito rode light, sipping from a water skin and holding the water in his mouth, just like Gomez taught the young'uns climbing White Mountain. "Don't swallow, don't spit," he muttered to himself, grinning at the memory, "else you'll be panting like a scared jackrabbit 'fore sundown." By noon, he come across a dry creek bed where the bones of some long-dead critter lay bleaching in the sun. He stopped to rest. Chashi lay, squinting toward the horizon where the heat made the air dance like a mirage. That's when he spotted a lone rider, swaying slow in the distance, looking half dead from thirst. Cigarito's hand went to his tomahawk, but he held steady. Could be a trap. Could be a fool. Either way, he weren't one for shooting first. The rider was a scrawny Creole feller, part of the trader's scouting party by the look of him. His horse was near give out, and his lips was cracked like old leather. "Agua, por favor," he croaked, sliding off his saddle. Cigarito eyed him careful, then tossed him the water skin. "Take a sip, but don't go guzzling. Ain't no spring round here." The Creole drank, sputtering thanks, and Cigarito leaned close. "You with them traders headed for Santa Fe?" The feller nodded, wary. "Just scouting the trail. They're a day behind, maybe two. Got a wagon heavy with goods. Rifles, mostly." Cigarito's eyes glinted like a fox's. "Reckon you'll tell me where they're camping tonight?" The Creole hesitated, but a man facing death in the desert don't argue long. "By the Red Bluffs," he mumbled. "They'll stop there come dusk." Cigarito let him go, pointing him toward a water hole a few miles off. "Don't you go blabbing 'bout me," he warned, "or I'll find you 'fore the buzzards do." Come nightfall, Cigarito reached the Red Bluffs, where the traders' campfires flickered like stars fallen to earth. He tied Chashiale to a scrub oak and crept close, moving silent as a shadow. The traders was a rough bunch, laughing and passing a bottle round the fire. Their wagon sat heavy with crates, guarded by two fellers with rifles. He listened close as the head trader, a feller named Don Esteban, jawed about their plans. "We'll trade them rifles to the Comanche," he said, voice low. "They'll pay in gold, and we'll be rich as kings." Cigarito's blood ran cold. Arming the Comanche against the Mescalero? That was trouble brewing faster than a desert storm. He slipped back to Chashiale, his mind racing. He couldn't take the whole camp alone, but he could make things mighty inconvenient. By morning, the traders woke to find their wagon's axle busted clean in two, their powder barrels spiked with sand, and half their horses cut loose, galloping off into the desert. Cigarito watched from a ridge, chuckling soft as he lit his pipe. "That'll slow 'em down," he said to Chachile, who snorted like he agreed. But the voyage weren't over. Cigarito knew he had to beat 'em to Santa Fe, warn the Mescalero scouts waiting there, and make sure them rifles never reached Comanche hands. He rode hard, dodging patrols and sleeping in K's, living off jerky and the desert slim pickings. Well now, jerky ain't just some victuals you tote along a trail. It's a downright marvel, a testament to folks' wits and their hankering to keep on living when the world turns ornery. Long afore anybody dreamed up ice boxes or such, folks figured out that drying meat was the way to keep it from going bad. Why, it was simple as sin, but worked like a charm, letting them stash food for lean times, long treks, or when the hunt went sour. All over this big old world, folks cooked up their own ways to do it. Them Egyptians, they'd let the sun bake their meat dry as a bone. Them Mongol fellers, riding hard across the plains, they'd cure strips of meat in the wind, keeping their bellies full while they was conquering half creation. Ain't no borders on being clever, I reckon. But let me tell you, ain't no dried meat tales richer than the ones from them native folks right here in the Americas. They was the true masters, no two ways about it. Up in them high Andes, the Inca was salting and drying llama and alpaca meat, calling it charqui. That's where we got our word jerky from, don't you know? And up north, tribes like the Lakota, Comanche, and Cherokee, they was wizards at it, slow-smoking buffalo, elk, or deer over a low fire till it was tough as leather but tasty as all get out. Some of them even whipped up pemmican, a mighty mix of dried meat, melted fat, and maybe some berries tossed in for good measure. That there was a regular miracle food. Kept hunters, warriors, and wanderers going for weeks, maybe months, without so much as a grumble in their guts. When them European fellers showed up, Spanish conquistadors, French fur traders, and the like, they seen the sense in it right quick. Them Spaniards took to jerky after spying it with the Inca. Them French and British traders, tramping through the wilds, they leaned hard on pemmican to keep from starving in the back country. By the time the 1700s and 1800s rolled around, jerky was the lifeblood of pioneers, mountain men, and them cowpokes driving cattle across the wide open plains. Out there with no fresh meat to be had, jerky was their salvation, tough as an old boot, but able to stand up to the blazing sun and biting cold of the American West. Now every tribe had its own way of naming and fixing this stuff. The Mescalero Apache, down in the hot, dry lands of northern Mexico and the southwest, they had their own tricks, mark my words. Depended on what critters they was hunting, buffalo, deer, elk, or even jackrabbits, and what plants they could scrounge up to season or smoke it with. They'd change up the smoking time, the kind of wood they burn, maybe toss in some local herbs to give it a kick. Why, old Nego Yanni, he was a legend round them parts for his pemmican. Buffalo meat mashed up with juniper berries, yucca fruit, mahonia, and sumac. Tasted like the desert itself, it did. And Marcus, he was the feller in charge of the drying, watching them strips of meat like a hawk to make sure they was smoked just right, not a lick too much or too little. This weren't just about filling bellies, no sir. It was about tradition, about the land, about the folks who knowed how to coax a living out of the hard-scrabble desert. Every batch of jerky told a tale of the hunt, the fire, the people who could make that old wilderness sing. One night, under a sky thick with stars, he sat by a small fire thinking on what Gomez said about the path being long but clean. "Reckon I ain't done yet," he muttered, blowing smoke rings. "But I'll keep my path clean, spirits willin'." When he reached Santa Fe, dusty and lean as a wolf, he found the Mescalero scouts hiding in an arroyo. He told them the traders' plan, and together they laid a trap. Nothing bloody, just enough to spook the traders into turning back. When Don Esteban's caravan finally limped into town, they found their buyers gone, scared off by tales of Apache raiders. The rifles stayed in the wagon, and Cigarito's voyage ended with a nod from the elders and a new scar on his heart. Back in the village, the fires burned high, and the Mescalero sang of Cigarito's voyage, a tale of cunning over might. The young'uns listened wide-eyed, dreaming of their own paths, while Cigarito just grinned, knowing the desert always had another trick up its sleeve.